Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be focusing in on the AM change of light bites. We're going to talk about fishing topwater baits. And if you are a bass angler, this is the time of day that you should cherish. Predatory instincts take over and big bass make mistakes. That's what it's all about. The problem is this bite window is generally a short window of opportunity. So when it happens, you must be on your game. You have to have the right bait in place and you have to be fishing the right water. And that's what we're going to go over today. How to be on your game in that topwater AM bite window. Let's sit down and talk about it. In this video, we're going to talk about when the actual change of light bite happens. Might be different than what you think it is. We'll go over that. We're going to talk about the baits that we use, why we use them, when we use them, the situations we use them, and we'll talk about how to pair these baits up, making sure you have the right rod and line combos. That could be very important. We'll talk about some of the techniques that I use with this bait, with these baits, and I will also talk about a very special bait that you may not consider an AM topwater bait, but it is very instrumental. I use it almost every day when I am coming out here fishing through that bite window, and it helps me really determine a lot of times what's going on and when it's happening. But we're talking about a very short bite window. You make a wrong decision, you could be out of the game. So it's very important to make quick decisions, make the right decisions, cover the water, hit the strike zones that you need to hit with the proper baits. We're going to cover all of that stuff. When does the change of light bite actually start? Not necessarily at the actual change of light when the sun comes up. If you look, you're going out the night before and you see, oh, the sun's rising at 5 o'clock, I got to be out there at 5. No, that's wrong. Here is my first big tip. Please listen carefully. Let's just say the night before you're going to come out, you're going to get out early and you see the sun rises at 5 o'clock. If you get out and you are at the dock at 5 o'clock, you are late. You've got to get out early. This is the warm-up period. It's kind of like an athlete. If you got a big game, you don't show up 2 minutes before the game, throw your uniform on and get in the game. Same thing with fishing. If the sun rises at 5 o'clock, you have got to be at the dock at 4:30. You've got to be on the water and in your spot 15 to 20 minutes before first light. And your warm-up is to get your rods ready, to get that net ready, make sure you have the right baits on, position your rods on the deck so that the deck is clear. Remember, it's going to be low light. You don't want to be stepping on rods. You don't want to be fishing around for baits. Everything you need to do to prepare, you have to be ready 15 to 20 minutes before that first light change of bite starts. So that's my first tip. If you are on time to the change of light bite, you're late. Get there early. Let's review our topwater bait selection. And I put baits into 4 categories: poppers and walkers, reaction baits, wake baits, and frogs. Today we're gonna throw those frogs out the window because that's a bait that I will use them in the morning, but generally I'll start to use the frogs after the sun comes up and I'm fishing, over surface vegetation. So we actually have 3 categories of baits that we're going to be talking about: poppers and walkers, reaction baits, and wake baits. Let's just go over those baits real quick. Poppers, I think, are real easy to figure out. And by the way, I don't know if you can see my boxes here. I have about 5 boxes of baits, probably anywhere from 20 to 30 baits in each box. And I've got boxes underneath stowed away with more topwater baits. And I probably got 200 or 300 of these topwater AM baits. You don't need that. You need baits out of each category, each of the 3 categories that we talked about. You're going to need a couple of poppers. My suggestion would be, I like the Ricos, I like the Pop-Rs, I like, I'm not brand specific, but you will need some smaller poppers. You'll need different sizes, a little bigger popper. I've got a bubble walker here, and I consider a bubble walker kind of it's a popper, it's a walker, it's kind of a transition bait from when I am fishing just slow popping baits to walking baits. So a walking bait would be a big rover, or a spook. So let's go over that again. What you're going to need out of that category, the poppers and the walkers, you're going to need a couple poppers, a couple different sizes, a couple different colors. That'd be great. If you can only, get one, have a 2-inch, 2.5-inch popper, maybe with a rattle in it. If you're able to afford a few of these, get a couple different sizes, a couple different colors, and maybe one like this bubble walker here that's a silent model. So you want something with rattles in it, you want something that is silent, and we'll go over that in a little bit. And this has to do with water conditions, weather conditions, and depth, and how aggressive the fish are, and how loud you want the bait to be. So we have the poppers, the walkers. I would go with a standard Zara spook or a rover. These are walking baits, and you guys know, if you fish out here much, you've watched my videos, I love the bubble walker, and this is kind of my transition bait from when I'm going from a popper to a bubble walker into a full-size walking bait. So that's the poppers and walkers. The next bait will be a total reaction bait, and there's only two baits as far as I'm concerned in that reaction bait, and that is a buzz bait and a whopper plopper. Yes, you can go, I have whopper ploppers in lots of sizes, all the way down from the 70 to the 130, and I think they make a 190. This is the 130, this is the 90. The 90 is actually the most popular bait across the U.S. At the Delta, for me, this 90 or this 130 is the bait that I use most of the time. But you'll want a couple of whopper ploppers, I don't care what color they are, and you'll want a buzz bait or two. And again, I have buzz baits up the yin yang, single bladed, double bladed. This happens to be the old standard Cavatron. It's about a $6 or $7 bait. That's all you need. A couple of buzz baits, a couple of whopper ploppers. You have a good supply of fast moving reaction baits. The next category we will get into, we talked about, is wake baits. Wake baits for me can be anywhere from a little guy like this. This is the small Mikey. This is a wake bait, and what I consider a wake bait, I'll use a bigger bait here to show you. Anything with a big lip on it like this, anything with a nose on it that pushes water. These are all surface baits, and they push water, and they are meant to attract fish through vibration and sound. They make a lot of sound, especially the ones that have this that have jointed. I love jointed wake baits. I suggest, if you are not a wake bait guy, you start with smaller wake baits. This is a small Mikey. This is a Battalion. It's a little bait made by, I think, Mega Bass. Again, it's a jointed bluegill, so when this is coming through the water, it doesn't have a lip on it, but it has a nose that pushes water, and it has a joint in it, so it makes noise. The fish are honing in on vibration. I have a lot of little bass, jointed bass wake baits. A little bill on this one. You can throw these with a, I'll say medium action crankbait rod is fine for these. 20-pound test. If you're going straight braid or straight mono, you can go get away with 30-pound braid with a leader. We'll go over a lot of this stuff, in just a minute. Now, as you use these baits, and here's another little bait I have. This is a little bait from Japan, and it is a 5-jointed bait. It's kind of takes the place of a twitch bait or a fluke. I've been catching a lot of fish on this bait, and I can't even tell you the name of it. If you guys have an interest in this, it's a very inexpensive bait, and boy, this thing has been catching fish on me. It's really light. You can throw this on a spinning rod. But as we go up the chain, we've got the big Mikey here. This is my favorite bait. It not only attracts lots of fish, but I've caught more big fish on the Delta on this Mikey than probably any other bait in my arsenal other than a worm. They don't make these anymore, but again, I am not brand specific to any of these baits. About a 5 or 6 inch jointed wake bait will do just fine, and you're obviously going to need a a little bigger rod to throw this. Let's go over rod and reel combinations, or excuse me, rod and line combinations. When I'm throwing bubble walkers and poppers, I'll throw these either on a 7-foot spinning rod, 30-pound braid, and you can throw these straight braid, but you will have a problem, especially with the walking baits and even the poppers, of the hooks coming around and fouling. So what I like to do is spinning rod, 7-foot 2, medium heavy, 30-pound braid with about 15 to 18 pounds of maxima leader. That's a hard leader, and it keeps the baits from coming back to the line and fouling the hooks on them. Now when you get into the bigger walking baits, you're going to throw those on a conventional rod. I still like to use braid line. I'll use probably a 18 to 20 pound leader, maybe 2 feet, so that the hooks don't foul on it. And that's what I will throw these guys on here. And a medium heavy rod, something that you would throw a crankbait on, will be fine for this. Buzz baits, I'll throw those on straight braid. Buzz baits or whopper ploppers. Again, if you are throwing a small whopper plopper, you can get straight braid, 20, 30-pound braid on a 7-foot spinning rod, medium action. These are great. If you hop up to the 130 size, you're going to probably want to throw this on, again, a 7-foot 2 medium or medium fast action conventional rod. You can throw these straight braid, 30 to 50 pound braid, no problem. If I throw a buzz bait, I'm throwing them on probably a medium heavy conventional rod, straight, 40 to 50 pound braid. That's what I'll throw the buzz baits on. When it gets into all of the wake baits and things like that, something like this, you can throw this little guy on a spinning rod, straight mono or straight fluoro. I would go with 12 to maybe 14 pound test. If you're going to go braid, you want to go 20 to 30, 40 pound braid with or without a leader. I generally throw a leader on them. With a bait like this, I'm probably only using about 12 pounds of leader. These battalions, these baits that are just under the water, just subsurface, I call them wake baits and surface baits because they're visual baits. Even though this bait doesn't actually float, it's only going to be this far below water, and you will always see the wake of this bait coming at you. You can throw this with, my favorite way to throw this guy is basically on a 7-foot 2 medium heavy conventional rod with about 14 pound mono. That's my way, that's what I'll throw this. The big Mikey's straight braid, I use a heavier rod, probably more of a 7.3 to a 7.6 rod, Phoenix M1, something that can chuck something that's 1.5 ounces. You can throw this out a little farther, and you can go with 18 pound straight mono, or you can go with braid with a 20 pound mono leader. Lots of ways you can do this, but make sure you have your baits paired up with the right rod and line combinations. So let's get into how we start our day. We know the baits that we're going to use. We know how to pair them up with the right rods. We know that we have to be out here early, and we're on our spot. It's just before light. We've got everything on deck. We are ready to go. What is our thought process, and how do we start thinking about this? Well, in actuality, we should have started thinking about this the night before. There are 4 main predictors. I call them the 4 horsemen. These are the things that I, in my mind, think about the night before, the morning that we're going out, and these are the things that are going to help me predict what I do. And here are the 4 horsemen. The night before, I'll look at my charts and everything. I'm looking for what time the sun rises, and we know, these are facts. We're going to know what these 4 horsemen are before we get out here. We know what time it's going to get light. We know what the tide's going to be, and I'm fishing here on the Delta. If you're not in a tidally influenced water, you can probably throw those out, but for me, 4 horsemen. The tide, sunrise, solunar activity, and wind. We know, the weather report's going to tell us about what the wind is. So when I get out here, I'll take a situation. I always look at those 4 horsemen, and boy, if I have 2 or 3 of those and they all line up, I think I'm going to do really good. If I only have one, maybe I know the sun's coming up at 5 o'clock. That's not great. But if I know the sun's coming up at 5 o'clock, I know that I have a high outgo tide. I'm going to be in a half an hour, 45 minutes into the outgo tide. That puts the sunrise in my favor. It puts the tide in my favor. I'm starting to get nervous. The next thing I look at salooner activity. I go down my chart and I see a bunch of heavy salooner activity in that same area. That's 3 things that are all in my favor. I look at the weather report and I got 6 to 10 miles an hour breeze. That is a day that I have to be out there on the water because all 4 of those 4 horsemen are lined up and I go out with extreme confidence. All right, so now we're actually ready to start fishing, and it doesn't matter, you know, we could go over a number of different scenarios, but it doesn't matter if it's one of those days where all the 4 horsemen are lining up in your favor. You think it's a real aggressive bite day, so you've got big baits, you've got fast-moving baits. You have the next day that comes out, there's no wind, tide's wrong, blah, blah, blah. The next day you may come out and you got, man, I got to slow down, I got to throw smaller baits, I got to throw poppers. Doesn't matter what baits we're talking about. We're going to talk about where you start fishing. How do we choose the areas that we're going to fish? Because when we come out here, like I said, if you come out to a dead zone and you spend 20, 30 minutes in it, your morning bite is probably done. So the first thing I'm going to suggest is start at a location that you know has fish on it if you are used to fishing an area or that you have history on that is usually good. You don't want to go out exploring at 15 minutes before the bite window. You want to go out to a location, and you want to go to a location that has a variety of targets. Here on the Delta, a variety of targets would be, maybe I come out to a Tule Island, and on this Tule Island I've got a couple of points to fish, I have a flat to fish, I have a deep side of the island. Those are 4 options, target options that I have just on this Tule Island. I can fish those very quickly. I recommend, if you can find places that have a Tule Island and if you look across, maybe there's a rock wall that has a trough in it, that's another a totally different location with a totally different target zone than what's on this Tule Island. So if you can go out to areas that have several different zones, Tule Island, rock bank with a trough on it, maybe a flat or maybe a flooded island that has some breaks in it. Maybe you're around a marina that has lights that the fish come in and they feed through the evening because the lights attract bait. Different things like this. And I suggest that once you get in your location, you don't move more than about a quarter mile. If you're going to make a move, you decide that, hey, this isn't panning out and I need to move. You don't want to be running while the fish are biting. You want to be able to move from here. Like I said, if I'm fishing this Tule Island and it's not panning off, what do I do? What do I do? I'm not catching fish. I'm going to go right over that rock wall. I'm going to fish the trough. That's what you're going to do. If that trough doesn't pay off and you've got to move because for whatever reason, maybe a 5-minute move down to the marina and fish around that marina, or maybe you move out to that flooded island and fish that flooded island. But move quickly and make your decisions. Where are the areas that you are going to fish when you're on an island? And this goes for anything. You're on an island, you're on a rock bank, you are on around a flooded island where you have flows coming in, flows coming out. You want to fish transition zones, you want to fish edges. The edges of anything. If it's the edge of floating hyacinth and I am throwing a whopper or a bubble walker, I want that bubble walker to be within 6 inches of the edge of that hyacinth. And I will not fish from, here's the bank or the hyacinth, here's my boat. I'm not going to be throwing from the boat to the hyacinth. I'm going to pull in real quick, real close to that hyacinth, and I'm going to fish up and down so that when I make a cast, I can throw a long cast. If it's a rock trough or something, I'm going to be not out from it throwing into it. I'm going to be on that bank and I'm going to be throwing parallel with it. Now think about this. If you're on a rock bank with a trough and there's surface vegetation 6 feet off the bank, How do we approach that? I get right into the trough when it is safe. If I can't get inside the trough, I'll go right to the outside, and I have 3 edges. The first edge is going to be the rock wall itself. I can throw a bait within inches of that rock wall. The next edge that I have is the inside edge of the vegetation. That's my second cast. And then the third edge that I have is the edge of the vegetation on the outside of the rock wall. So as I'm going down that bank, I can make one cast right within a few inches of the bank, because a lot of times those fish will be offshore, but they want off the bank, but they want something coming off the bank, and if it comes off the bank, they'll hit it. If it comes down in front of their face, it'll spook them. So I make one cast to the rock wall, I make one cast to the inside of the subsurface vegetation, and then I make one cast to the outside of the subsurface vegetation. I will only throw each bait maybe 5 or 6 casts, and then I will move on to another bait, and I'll throw that for 5 or 6 casts, and then I'll move on to possibly another bait. But I will continue rotating the baits, just so I'm rotating areas and edges, and I'm rotating baits. I'm cross-contaminating everything. If I am on a tule island and it's just straight tules, I want to make sure that I am within a foot of those tules. If I am in an area where I'm on the point and I'm throwing something across the point, I want to get as close to that point, and as I wrap around the point, I want to fish all the edges. Other edges that I might fish are when you have floating hyacinth and you're fishing the edge. I will go out a little farther, because generally probably 6 to 8 feet from where that hyacinth will usually grow, that's where there's going to be a subsurface ledge. So think about this when you're fishing hyacinth. The edge of that hyacinth is a transition zone. There are always going to be punch fish and frogfish that are way in under that hyacinth. They're tucked in there. Those are frogfish. Those are punch fish. There are going to be always fish on the edge that are feeding on bait fish that are moving up and down the edge. And then as you go off of that edge, the drop-off, the underwater drop-off that goes from maybe 2 feet up where the hyacinth is growing out to 3 or 4 feet to where the edge is, and the edge of the subsurface hyacinth or the surface hyacinth. Then you go out a little farther, and then you get that subsurface drop-off. That's another feeding zone where these fish may be chasing bait fish, different types of bait fish, crayfish, shad, whatever. Three feeding zones: shallow, under the hyacinth, the edge of the hyacinth, and then the outside drop-off, the subsurface drop-off, where the depth changes. Those are 3 feeding zones, but think about the edge. Think about the edge of the surface vegetation. There are always fish coming from shallow into deep, deep into shallow. There's other fish that are moving right along that edge, and if you think about it, that is the prime transition zone. If you're going to start anywhere, you want to fish right on the edge of that stuff so that you're keeping your baits in the water in the prime target zone for as long as you possibly can. Whew, that was a lot, wasn't it? All right, so with that, one bait, this is not the bait that I wanted to talk about, my secret bait, but one of the baits I left out when it comes into play with these wake baits is a small rat. I've been using this rat from Sack Pig Bait Company, and I've got tons of rats, big rats, little rats, blah blah blah. But man, if you got a little rat like this with a tail, this is doing a job for me. So think about that, and throw a rat or two every now and then out there, or a mouse. They're a lot of fun to fish, and you'll have a great time. And what is my secret AM bait? I'm out there, maybe I'm not catching a darn thing, or maybe I'm catching stuff, and then all of a sudden the bite dies. Here's my secret bait. My secret topwater AM change of light bite is a 6-inch Cinco. I mentioned, oh, that's not a topwater bait, is it? No, it's not a topwater bait, but I use it every morning. I have this on my deck, and when the topwater bite is not happening, maybe I've rotated through a popper, I've rotated through a walking bait, I've rotated through a whopper plopper, nothing's hitting. I'm going to take this bait, and I'm going to make about 3 casts with it. Every 5, 6, 7 minutes, if I'm not catching fish on topwaters, I'll throw that worm. There are days when the change of light bite, these fish key in on subsurface stuff. And when they're not taking topwaters, you know, a lot of times I'll try to force feed them because it's fun, but it's probably not the right thing to do. So at that point, I'll use my topwaters, nothing's going on, I'll throw this worm out there. If I get bit, I'll throw it again. If I start getting bit on this, you know, maybe I'll stay with the worm, maybe I'll go with the chatterbait, maybe I'll go with something subsurface. But this helps me, it tells me more often than not, especially when I'm staying out for a full day, hey, get off the topwaters and start transitioning into baits that are subsurface. Yeah. As they wean off the topwater bite, you may, you know, within that hour, you're going to be throwing 80% of your baits are going to be subsurface, worms, blah, blah, blah. Keep a couple of those baits on 20% of your topwater baits to clean up any other topwater fish that may be running around. And again, when you have the 4 horsemen on your side, maybe it gets to 10 o'clock in the morning and you didn't have a great topwater bite in that change of light, but now the wind's up, now the tide's in your favor, now the salooner activity is going, the fish get aggressive, you may have to, you know, maybe they stop biting the worm, you do the same thing. Throw a topwater bait a couple times, see if they'll pick that up. We all like fishing topwaters, but try to be as open-minded as you can when it comes from transitioning from topwaters to subsurface and then from subsurface back to topwater. So if you guys haven't been scared away by now, you're still watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have taken some information that you'll be able to use and help you catch some fish. If you have any questions, I read all of the comments. Hit me up in the comments. You can ask a question if I forgot something or you want me to maybe expand on something that I haven't already talked about, and I'll try to get back to you. Sometimes it takes a couple days, but I do read your comments, and I appreciate all you guys watching. And I hope you go out there and catch a big one. If you do, you know I do a weekly report here on the Delta every week. Send me a picture of that big fish that you went out and caught, and we'll make sure we get your picture up on the weekly report. Other than that, go out, have some fun. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the river.